Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Today I am going to be giving you my review of the 2024 Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master screen. And now this was sent to me by Wizards of the Coast for the purposes of doing a review video for, so I do want to thank them for sending this my way. However, as is always the case, they are not scripting or pre-screening the video, and the opinions that I express are 100% completely and totally my own. So this is like the brand new DM screen here, and it is continuing with the tradition of getting rid of cellophane wrapping, and instead we've got the paper sleeve, which has the pull tab here. Now this is actually my second time recording this video. There were some audio issues with the first time that I recorded it, so we're going to go ahead and redo it there. But you know, the tearing of the pull tab always feels kind of painful when I do it, and I don't know if I'll ever get past that. Now this does retail for $19.99 US. Again, we're talking like 2024. The Canadian price, I'm not entirely sure exactly what it would be, but I would suspect probably about $25 to $26 Canadian for that. We do have the 50th anniversary logo there, and yeah, let's just go ahead and show what's inside. So we open up the pull tab, and inside we actually have something that I think is really, really cool. And I was really impressed with this the very first time that I pulled this out of the box there. But we do get, and I know it's only paper, cardstock, or whatever, but I still think this is a really cool inclusion. We get an actual folder with a pouch or a pocket for you to carry this in. Or, more to the point, you can actually use this as a means of carrying your notes and stuff around. If you have like your adventure written out or printed off or however you do it, if you're like me and are completely inept with technology, you can carry everything in here, and you've got your handy dandy DM screen there as well. So really cool stuff. Yeah, so like I was really blown away. And again, it's a small thing, I understand, but it's still really cool. You got the dragon artwork there on the front, and then you just have the logo on the back there with the black dragon. So cool stuff there. Now, the front side of the screen, or the player-facing side of the screen here, this is probably the biggest point of contention, and I'll talk about it more in the review section, but we'll just take a look at the artwork here. It's sort of like a mural style. Like, this almost seems like the kind of thing that you would find as like a relief or a fresco or something in a dungeon, right? You got the dragon there, you know, sort of lording over this glowing golden fiery D20, and looks like two different groups of adventurers are looking after it there, with the two gold dragons on the on sort of like the bookends there. But then on the inside, we've got our screen information. So it won't be a 5th edition screen without the conditions. However, the conditions now only take up a single panel as opposed to a panel and a half, which is better. And I do understand that a lot of things in, you know, modern D&D do cause conditions. So it's important to have that information available to you. And this is intended to be the first screen that a new, you know, beginning dungeon master might pick up. So having it there available, I understand. I'm glad they finally stopped including the artwork so that it can just be like the one panel, but you've got good sized, you know, font, everything. And it actually is a bit more, I would say, informative, I think, than the original like DM screens for 5th edition. But we will be doing a comparison between this and the reincarnated screen here momentarily. But the first panel is your conditions. Second panel is improvising damage. So this is, again, really useful information just to have at a glance. If the players do something a little unexpected, it gives you some examples here that you can sort of compare them to. You've got damage severity by level. So character levels 1 through 4, if it's meant to be something you can brush off, or if it's meant to be something that could be potentially fatal. You've got those bit of information there as well. And then you've got the action summary. So what you can do as an action on your turn. So you got, you know, attack, dash, disengage, dodge, help, hide, influence, use magic, ready in action, search or study or utilize, like manipulate a magic item, And that's in addition to being able to move your speed and use a bonus action and stuff like that. So those are just the actions. It does say to see the player's handbook for rules glossary for full action definitions. The one thing that I do wish that would have included would have been a page reference. But at the same time, I guess they're trying to have some degree of backwards compatibility, which I'll talk about in another video, because I do want to do a video talking about some of the updates in the player's handbook. The new player's handbook, but I would have liked a page reference there. And you could have even had, because you got plenty of room there, you could have even had two. Like, this is where the rules glossary is in the 2020, the 2014, and then 2024, or 2024 and then 2014. But I think that would have been kind of useful to have. You got long jump and high jump rules there as well, so that's useful information to have. Not because you use it a lot, but it tends to be one of those things that when it does come up, you usually have no idea, right? And I've even DM'd or ruled over jump checks a bunch of times in the past. And I got to be honest, a month or so later, so many other things have come up that truthfully I keep forgetting how to rule those. I also have several different editions of D&D bouncing around in my head. So for every edition, there's sort of a different way of doing jump rolls, and it gets to be a mess. You've also got the concentration table here as well, or descriptions. So you can, another concentration effect, so you can lose concentration the moment you cast on the spell that requires it if you take damage. So basically, what can break your concentration, the DCs that you have to look at. So DC 10 or half the damage, whichever is higher. And then if you're incapacitated or you die, obviously you lose concentration. So useful stuff there as well. Now here's a section that maybe only I really am happy to see, but this is the skills table. So these are all the skills and the ability scores connected to them. And for me, again, this is my personal review, my personal thoughts. I'm happy to have this here because, again, I run so many different editions of D&D, and on any given week, I'm looking at various rule books from different, decades, and I can't tell you how many times in my 3.5 D&D game I've asked the players for a deception roll, or how many times in my 5e games I would ask for a bluff check. Or in my 3.5 games, I would ask for athletics instead of something like climb or jump or swim, right? So whereas that's athletics now, it was several different skills in 3rd edition. So I've just got a lot of different skills in my head, and it's hard to keep them straight. So having them on the table makes it a lot easier. For example, I won't be looking for search checks when it comes to 5th edition because search is not one of the skills. Also, I came dangerously close once to asking a player to roll a use rope skill check because they were describing what they wanted to do with their rope, and I just recently ran a 3rd edition session that was, sort of nautical themed, so there was use rope in that one as well. So I like the fact that the skills are there. We also have the death saving throw information, so when you roll your d20, what happens? You've got object armor class and object hit points, as well as, I would suggest that, I think that's their hardness or their resistance, I can't remember here. It's just their hit points, okay, never mind. Object hit points if it's fragile or if it's resilient. So we got that there, armor class. Food, drink, and lodging. Again, not something that you're going to use a lot, but it could be handy just to have that information available the second you need it rather than trying to find it in the book. And then we've got the typical difficulty classes. Again, this is a useful piece of table to have, especially if you're trying to improvise something on the fly because the players go in a direction you're not expecting. This sort of give you some ideas for DCs to set for different things. Your light sources, bright light, dim light, and how long it lasts for. So again, pretty good stuff to have. Like the torch is 20 feet, and then 20 feet of dim illumination or dim light after this 20-foot bright light radius, and then it lasts for an hour. So it's just, again, some good information to have there. Obscured areas, so lightly obscured, and then examples of it, heavily obscured, and then examples of that as well. And then on the 4th panel, we've got travel pace, travel terrain, so an encounter distance is factored into the travel terrain table there, as well as some foraging DCs for survival checks made to avoid needing rations, navigation checks, and search checks. So that's actually a really cool table there as well. And then we've got the cover rules, so half, 3/4, or total. Audible distance, visibility outdoors, And then we've got we've got the weather stuff there as well. So if you're doing overland travel, you might want to roll on the weather table. So overall, some pretty decent tables included there. So now let's take a look at the I think this was what, 2017? I can't seem to find the year that this was released. It might be on the screen itself. But this is the reincarnated screen. I decided to go with the reincarnated screen rather than the original 2014 screen, because the 2014 screen had like a panel and a half, or like a full panel dedicated to NPC tables for rolling or determining NPC stuff regular or randomly, I should say. So I thought that this one might be a better choice because it's more in line with what information will be included. So we can definitely see a difference in the artwork here. We've got a stylized, almost comic kind of look, or again, I call it mural painting or mural design artwork here. And then you've got the more photorealistic dragon with the burning city below. This screen, though, is awfully red, and that was one of my complaints, is that I would have liked to have seen a little bit more color. This one might have a little too much color, but again, we'll get into that here in a moment. But let's take a look at the actual contents of the screen itself. So going sort of panel by panel here, and we'll just fold this up so we can try to get a bit of a closer look here. So for the first panels, this one here, the reincarnated screen, has your action summary. It also has your long jump, high jump, suffocating, and concentration, and as well as the things that you can do on your turn. This has the conditions here as a single panel. On the next one, though, we've got, again, a panel and a half dedicated to the conditions because they wanted to make it fancy with all the different artwork, whereas this is just a single panel here. So, to compare information, we do have the actions in combat, which is on this screen here. We do have long jump, high jump, and concentration, but we don't have the things you can do, although, again, it's not particularly difficult. That's not something, that's one of the first things that you'll learn, so I don't know if you necessarily need to be able to look up that you can do a move action, and then an action and a bonus action, as well as a reaction. So we got that table, that information there. We do have the skills, which are not on this screen, but we do have some difficulty settings for DCs. There's a little bit more information I'll say here because we do have some modifications or some flat DCs as well that you might use. So setting a DC, tracking DCs, damage by level of severity, which we have here as well, which is right. Where did it go? I was looking at it just a moment ago, but yeah, over here. Sorry, there we go. Improvising damage and damage severity. Object hit points, again, armor class. Oh, we do have the skills. Okay, we do have the skills down here. So we got similar information. Travel pace, we have travel pace. Services, we've got the we got the food, drink, and lodging. So a little bit less information. We do have the food, drink, and lodging table over here. So encounter distance, obscured areas, cover, light. So a lot of similar information. We are missing the services table on the new screen, but it's been replaced with what looks like the weather table there. And again, we've saved a decent amount of space by not having the artwork or the separation for all of the conditions. And again, I just kind of feel like the conditions are laid out a little bit better on the new screen, but fairly comparable in terms of what's on there. And it's sort of the general stuff that you're probably going to look up more often than you think you will. So it's useful to have it on the screen. So for the DM side, I think you've got a really decent set of tables and set of information there for the DM to have at a glance without having to look it up in the books there. So things that, again, you may not necessarily need to know all the time, but when they come up, it can grind things to a bit of a halt when you're like, okay, how do I do the jump checks again? Or what would be a good armor class or hit points for, if the players are attacking, trying to break open like a chest or a barrel or something like that. How much will food and lodging be at in inn, depending on the different types that you may want there for how much money you're willing to spend. So some good stuff there. The travel terrain, again, I like that includes foraging and navigation. So that's a really good table if you're going to use overland travel quite a bit. And yeah, so really good stuff. Now, the one downside I'm going to be completely and totally honest with is I'm not a fan of this art. And I know that art is subjective, and there's going to be people out there that absolutely love this, and I think that that's great. But personally, I really wish they went with a more realistic approach to the art style. Again, with the reincarnated screen, we have this really menacing looking red dragon here. And, you know, you could have had a scene, because they're involving their black dragon a lot with stuff. So you could have had like a really cool scene with like a black dragon attacking like a group of adventurers, or something like that. Like, I just think that this is a little too kind of cartoonish or comic booky for my preferences. And the art it's something that the players are going to be looking at a lot. So, you know, it's one of those things that I do hope that they release an updated version of the DM screen. They can pretty much keep the DM side where it is. I think, like I said, that's pretty useful information. But I know that a few people that I've sort of discussed this with kind of have the same opinions that I do, and just like the art style just doesn't do it. It doesn't set the tone that I think a lot of people want for their games. This is a very, like I said, it's very colorful, very stylized, very cartoonish, which isn't a bad style in of itself. Like early Eberron and third edition had a very comic book kind of style to it as well. But even their DM screen had a much more like realistic look and evoked sort of like a mystery or like a exploration kind of element to it. I mean, this one here, you've just got two groups facing off over a D20. So I don't know, like the art, I don't like to rate things on a scale too often. But if I had to rate the art based on my personal preference, it would probably be a 5 out of 10. It's not bad, it just seems out of place here. And like if this were connected to an adventure book that had a mural depicting, you know, characters or parties facing off, you know, against one another over some sort of magical MacGuffin that's, you know, held up by this dragon, it would be fine because it would sort of be in line with the adventure. But just trying to set the tone for like a typical D&D campaign, I think this misses the mark. But the other side of the screen, I think, is perfectly fine. So, you know, there's information here that I would use. I would make use of this side of the screen. I think the inclusions here are good. I just think the art style is a bit of a miss for me personally. But if you like the art, then that's awesome. Because, like I said, art is subjective, and not everything's going to appeal to everybody. But the screen itself, I think, is really decent. And again, I love the inclusion of this paper folder. Again, it's not much. But here, I mean, even here, like inside there, the art is a much more realistic style with the black dragon attacking a group of characters. So why couldn't that have been the screen art? And then this could have just been sort of like a stylized thing to catch your attention when it's on a store shelf. Because, you know, if you're on a store shelf and you want somebody to buy your product, you know, catching their eye is a good way to do that. And this will definitely catch your eye at the gaming store. But when it comes to at your table, I don't think I'd want to look at this every single session. So if I were to use this screen, I might find other bits of art or something. Like I might have a location map, like the region map or whatever for wherever the players are. I might sort of put that over top of the player's side of the screen, and maybe some other tables that might be useful to the players. But yeah, it is what it is. The screen itself, I think, is still worth it. I still think it's a decent screen. I just think the art's a bit of a miss for me. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Are you picking up the new 2024 DM screen? What is your favorite DM screen that you've ever owned? And what types of tables do you like to include on yours if you're modifying or sort of overlaying your own stuff on top of what's included on the default one? Because a lot of people do that too. They like to customize their screens, and that's totally awesome. So yeah, what type of tables do you like to put on your screens if they're not on there already? Anyway, thank you guys so very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all next time. Until then, take care.